Ms. Lesko, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I love this committee because we're talking about energy, critical minerals, and the environment. What could be more important than that? Mr. Chairman, I'm proud to sponsor the House concurrent resolution expressing disapproval of the revocation by President Biden of the presidential permit for the Keystone XL pipeline. This is a simple resolution, and I hope my colleagues will support it. Many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have said they disapprove of the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, and this resolution gives them and the entire House of Representatives the opportunity to show our disapproval. On day one of his administration, President Biden canceled the Keystone pipeline. Soon after he canceled the Keystone, he removed sanctions on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. This paved the way for Russia to hold the EU hostage to Russia's energy and not allow cleaner U.S.-provided LNG. Canceling the Keystone pipeline did not stop the drilling or exporting of the sand oils as the extreme environmentalists thought. The 830,000 barrels per day of crude oil from Alberta, Canada is still being produced and being shipped via rail or other pipelines. Canada's oil sand producers were able to export a record amount of crude in 2022 to overseas markets, including China and India. So instead of providing well-paying jobs for Americans, the Biden administration prefers those jobs to go elsewhere. The cancellation of the pipeline also did little to stop emissions. CO2 emissions will increase since much of the oil is now transported by the railroads, a much dirtier method of transit, instead of the pipeline. Rail transport also increases the risk of derailment and ensuring environmental damage of spilled oil. Mr. Menzies, thank you for pointing out in your written testimony another shortcoming of President Biden canceling the Keystone pipeline. The fact that the U.S. and its allies would have had access to Canadian oil to lessen the import and use of Russian oil. Canceling the pipeline was a horrible financial decision, in my opinion. Developers of Keystone XL are seeking to recoup more than $15 billion in damages connected to President Biden's decision. Mr. Menzies, what other financial losses can you comment on due to the cancellation of the XL pipeline?
Well, I was going to add that, we import about 700,000 barrels per day from Russia, so the Keystone pipeline could have also been used to offset that amount, as we, along with all other NATO countries and our allies, have said no to Russia resources. So it's very significant, as we've been talking about all morning. The fact is that if you can increase supply, you're going to have downward pressure on prices, for our for your constituents and for the American people. I know, people want to have it both ways, right? They would like to stop to have refineries operate, but they want their constituents to have cheap gas. You can't have it both ways. We can have environmentally compliant refineries in operation and making rational decisions to remove the bottlenecks, but that's just common sense approaches, really, is everything we're considering today.
Thank you. My next question is for Ms. Sweeney. Ms. Sweeney, copper is not listed as a critical mineral, although it's, I think that it uses 4 times as much copper in an electrical vehicle as in a standard vehicle and other things. Why do you think that copper isn't listed as a critical mineral, and do you think it should be?
I definitely think that it should be. I think that it actually does meet the U.S. Geological Survey criteria, but when they were doing the latest list, they didn't have the most recent data in front of them. I think using the data today, that copper would definitely make that list. However, in National Mining Association's viewpoint, anything that you need and can't get really should be critical. So maybe those kinds of criticality lists don't just make the most sense, because as technologies change, something that's critical today may not be critical tomorrow. People were talking about substitutions. Well, then you're creating a new critical mineral, because something that maybe we use now to substitute becomes the next big thing that everybody's going to need. So if we just had efficient permitting, criticality, does it matter so much?
Well, good, and I hope that copper is added to the critical mineral list because I'm from Arizona. We produce lots of copper, and it's unfortunate that the Resolution copper mine has been put on hold. The final environmental impact statement was approved under the former administration and now has been put on hold, plus a lawsuit. So I yield back. Thank you.